Hey everyone, welcome back to Learn With Me. I'm Deborah Hanson, and today we're going to look at 2.4 Encoding Memories for the AP Psychology, the new curriculum that they've put out. So we're going to talk about the CED question, and we're going to look at the essential knowledge that the College Board wants us to know for this particular question. Okay, let's look at the question. Explain how different encoding processes work to get information into memory. So how basically do we encode these memories? Okay, so I'm going to have a few little key terms here. These are actually embedded really well into this particular presentation because that's how we're kind of going to learn what they are, the function and examples and stuff. But I'm still going to do a key terms video after this with just, again, definition and more examples, just so they can really understand the words so that you can apply them on the AP exam, okay? So let's talk about introduction to encoding memories. Okay, so let's look at the definition of that. So encoding is the initial process of converting information into a form that can be stored in a memory. Now, we actually did do this definition in 2.3, so you should already know what encoding is, but at the same time, we're really going into a little bit more details now. So what is the importance of that? The importance is how information is encoded affects how well it's stored and retrieved. So encoding is similar to translating information to a language that the brain can understand and store. We're going to look at mnemonic devices and chunking. So let's look at mnemonic devices. So these are examples of how we encode information, okay? So an example of a mnemonic device would be the method of Loki. So that uses familiar locations as a framework to remember information, which enhances memory by associating items with specific physical locations, okay? We'll go into that into the key terms video a little bit more. Then we have chunking. Chunking is a device that we use to group pieces of information into larger, meaningful units. So basically, the benefit of that is that it makes it easier to process and remember information. We're going to look at hierarchical organization. So this is basically organizing information into categories or hierarchies to enhance recall. So for example, sorting concepts into broader categories that link to more specific grouped data. So application would be like in a textbook, you know how they're organized using this principle with chapters, subsections, sections, and all of that. And we do the same thing in our notes if we want to remember things, right? We organize them in a way that is going to make it easier to remember the information, to find the information, and to study that information, and to then encode it. Spacing effect. So the spacing effect is basically encoding information over spaced intervals. So that's distributed practice. So rather than in one condensed period, that's your cramming, that's your mass practice, right? So distributed practice is shown to improve long-term retention more effectively than massed practice. And mass practice is really just that cramming. So, you know, when we actually like cram the night before, we basically haven't done anything, we haven't done the unit, all of a sudden our teacher tells us we have this unit test, but I haven't looked at it, and I cram all this information in. Well, research actually shows us that that doesn't actually really work very well. So spacing it along and organizing it better really does affect your long-term memory or your long-term retention of the information. So examples like Quizlet that utilize that spaced repetition, right? So those are great apps that you can use, or I don't know if they're apps, but anyway, sorry, I'm technologically challenged. But anyway, you can use that to help remembering it storing that into your long-term memory. So looking at the serial position effect, we're going to look at primacy effect. We're going to look at recency effect, and we're going to look at the middle items. Okay, so let's look at primacy effect. This says that better recall for items at the beginning of the list is usually better due to the longer processing time and less interference. Recency effect is enhanced recall for items at the end of the list because they're still in your working memory. And middle items tend to be less memorable unless emphasized differently during the study period. So if you break your studying into three different parts. So for example, the things you do first, and then things you do at the end, and then things you do in the middle. So it's just basically talking about how we remember things, where we remember them, and the position that we've actually studied them or tried to remember them. Or learn them, sorry, not remember them. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so we're just going to summarize this up because really that's all it is for 2.4, the encoding. So let's summarize our key points. Effective encoding strategies can significantly enhance the ability to store and retrieve information. And tips for students: experiment with different encoding strategies to find what works best for your learning style, because we know we don't all learn the same way. And so, even like I've said this before, I'm an SAT tutor. And even with that, I teach so many different methods to learn it. And with the AP as well, you're going to have to figure out what works best for you. Some kids work best by writing out the words on flashcards and studying them. Some kids work best by using Quizlets. You've got to figure out what works for you, what is going to help you retain and encode that information so that you can retrieve it on exam day. So that's all the essential knowledge that you need to know for 2.4 encoding memories based on that CED question we talked about. And I'm going to do a video now with the key terms and some examples so that you can also really keep learning those words and encoding them into your brain. So thank you so much for listening. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate that. And leave me comments. I like to see the comments, and I always answer. So have a great day. See you next time.